In Brazil, authorities step up the fight against illegal mining on indigenous land, where many clandestine gold prospectors refuse to leave the region. In Italy, at least 59 people died and 80 others were rescued following the shipwreck of a vessel off the coast of Calabria. And in Jordan, Israeli and Palestinian delegations agreed to avoid further violence and seek alternatives to de-escalate tensions. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Peru, citizens marched on Saturday in response to new calls for protests against the government of appointed President Dina Boluarte, whom they blame for at least 60 deaths caused by the repression of public forces. Demonstrators gathered at Campo de Marte de Lima, also known as Revolution Square, located in the district of Jesus Maria, to demand justice for those who died during their struggle for democracy. Some of the demonstrators carried in their hands the photographs of the deceased and black ribbons to honor them. These marches were repressed by members of the National Police, who were beating demonstrators and used tear gas against them. These actions carried out by public forces left a balance of at least 2 people wounded, a man and a woman, who ended up with significant injuries in their heads.
I received aggression from the police of the Grifo over there. They hit me hard on my head. I was already on the floor and so much blood was coming out of my face. My chin with which I was covering myself was red and a policeman reached me with a scarf and told me to clean and cover myself with it, because if I don't do that, I will be denounced as a terrorist and be prosecuted as a terrorist. That's what the policeman told me.
On Saturday, 4 people were killed in the municipality of Cartago in the department of Valle del Cauca, eastern Colombia, after gunmen shot at a group watching a football match on television. It appears that the hit-and-run attack was motivated by retaliation, according to Colonel Wilson Roman Silva, deputy commander of the Valle Police. The National Police, together with the Attorney General's office, are already conducting investigations to capture the perpetrators responsible for this unfortunate event, added Roman Silva. The Institute for Development and Peace Studies, which monitors massacres in Colombia, reported that this is the 20th massacre in the South American country during the course of 2023. Brazilian authorities step up the fight against illegal mining on the Yanomami indigenous land, where many clandestine gold prospectors accused of unleashing a humanitarian crisis are refusing to leave the region. Teams from the Government Environmental Agency, IBAMA, and the Federal Highway Police were deployed to find and arrest those engaged in mining activity in the protected territories. The illegal miners have been accused by Yanomami leaders of physically abusing women, as well as polluting their rivers with the mercury they use to separate the gold from the sediments. During these operations, they captured some miners who were in an improvised camp deep in the Amazon. The government of Luis Ignacio da Silva issued in January a state of health emergency decree for the territories where the Yanomami tribes live.
We will now begin to neutralize these fronts in the interior. We have established the control bases to curb the logistical supply for illegal activities in the 2 main rivers, and now we are beginning the next phase of the operation, which is to attack these mining fronts, disrupting and neutralizing them in the most remote areas of indigenous land.
Chilean authorities announced on Sunday that the number of active fires decreased from 33 to 21 in the last 24 hours. They emphasized that this is the lowest figures for the whole year and that the most of the fires are located in the central southern zone of the country. In total, 458,157 hectares are purported to have been consumed by the flames. Biobío, Laura, Canilla, and Ñuble are the regions with the largest areas affected by the fire. The fires unleashed since the beginning of February caused 25 deaths, the destruction of 2,341 houses, and 7,587 people reported as victims. Experts affirm that the fires have worsened due to high temperatures, drought, and climate change, as well as the lack of means to extinguish the flames. In Brazil, the death toll from the rains that affected the northern coast of Sao Paulo and left more than 4,000 people displaced rose to 64. According to local media, the victims who have been identified are 19 men, 17 women, and 18 minors. Also, some 4,000 homes were partially or totally destroyed by the weather phenomena. Several rescue teams continue with the search and rescue of those still missing. Meanwhile, the government announced the creation of a state directorate to support the reconstruction works in São Sebastião. The Brazilian MST, which is Latin America's largest popular social movement, started planning its 40th anniversary celebrations this week. In Pernambuco, our correspondent Brian Meir has more.
Brazil's Landless Rural Workers Movement, or MST, is holding annual planning meetings in 26 states this month, where thousands of delegate farmers are discussing a year-long series of events leading up to its 40th anniversary, which will take place next February.
We are going to have many activities. We are going to recover the history of all of the settlements the MST occupied during these 40 years, and we will have moments to celebrate, because remembering also means looking at where we came from. This black tarp here symbolizes this, because from below these tarp shacks, we were able to build better lives for all of the peasants who fought for the right to farmland.
According to the MST, recovering the history of the protests and land occupations which provided farmlands to over 400,000 families, along with the technical advances made by the movement in organic agriculture production, will give the next generation more tools and more knowledge to continue the struggle for agrarian reform.
As long as there is one large estate not being used productively and one landless family, the MST will continue its occupations. And we hope the next generation will always remember that this was built through a lot of struggle and a lot of people's resistance.
From the MST's Normandia Agrarian Reform Settlement, this is Brian Meir, teleSUR, Pernambuco.
Let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at the account of teleSUR English, in which you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. At least 59 people, including children, have died after a boat carrying asylum seekers and refugees sank off the Italian coast. The vessel had set sail from Turkey several days ago with 250 migrants from Afghanistan, Iran, and several other countries, and crashed on Sunday in stormy weather near Steccato di Cutro, a seaside resort on the eastern coast of Calabria. According to a statement made to the press by a provincial government official, over 59 people have been reported dead and 81 survived, of which 20 have been hospitalized. Italy is one of the main landing points for asylum seekers trying to enter Europe by sea. At least 2,836 people died in 2022 crossing the central Mediterranean, a route considered the most dangerous migrant crossing in the world. The latest tragedy comes just days after Italy's far-right government pushed through parliament a controversial new law on rescuing refugees and migrants. The law forces rescue vessels to make just one rescue attempt at a time, which critics say risks increasing the number of drownings in the central Mediterranean. Far-right Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni was elected last September partly on a promise to stem the flow of refugees and migrants reaching Italian shores. In a statement on Sunday, she expressed her deep sorrow over the incident and the many human lives cut short by human traffickers. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu declared that the nation is ready to expand the military operation in Ukraine to neutralize the weapons flowing into the country from the West. The Russian minister outlined the conditions for a widening of Moscow's military operation in Ukraine, explaining that potential advances are directly tied to Western arms deliveries to Kiev. Russia has repeatedly urged Western states to stop pumping Ukraine with weapons, maintaining that the continuous flow of arms would only prolong the conflict rather than change its ultimate outcome. On the other hand, Kiev has repeatedly demanded more and longer-range weaponry from its Western backers, insisting that such systems are needed to push Russian troops out of the territories Ukraine claimed as its own. Russian President Vladimir Putin confirmed on Sunday his allegations about the involvement of NATO in the conflict in Ukraine and said that the aim of Western countries is to divide the Russian Federation. The Russian president stated that NATO's arms supplies to Ukraine can be considered as participation in the conflict because the alliance does not receive money for it. Therefore, Moscow considers that the West has become a direct ally of Kiev's crimes. Putin added that his administration is opposed to the unilateralist model promoted by the United States, in which it seeks to suppress other world power poles.
They have one goal: to break up the former Soviet Union and its main port, the Russian Federation, and then, perhaps, they will accept us into the so-called family of civilized nations, but only separately, each part separately, in order to suppress these parts and bring them under their control.
The European Union has adopted so far 10 packages of unilateral punitive measures against Russia following the special military operation in Ukraine. The package established restrictions against individuals or entities supporting the war or supplying Russia with drones and artillery to be used in the conflict. They have also restricted the passage through Russian territory of dual-use goods, civil and military, with 1,275 personalities and 435 Russian institutions being sent to the blacklist. The restrictions were imposed shortly before President Vladimir Putin's order on February 24, 2022 to start the special military operation. 2 days after Putin's announcements, the European Union approved the first package that included sanctions against 383 natural and 4 legal persons and 160 punishments on different economic sectors. In an interview with China's Central Television, Leonardo Panetta, an Italian expert on EU issues, said the sanctions against Russia do more harm than good, and they must reflect what it has to be done in response to the Ukraine crisis in the past year and find a truly effective way to alleviate the crisis.
Not only for the European sanction, but if you study the history of sanction, there are a lot of books, you can find a lot of doubts on the effects of the sanction. So I don't think it's the best tool. Now Europe, every 2 months, they propose a new package of sanction, but I don't think that they will work as Europe expects.
Almost 200 flights were suspended this Sunday in Germany after an airline industry strike over higher salaries and better working conditions. Düsseldorf Airport joined the strike called by the Verdi and Comba unions to demand a 10.5% wage increase for their members to compensate for the increase in inflation in the country as a result of the conflict in Ukraine. After registering a 1.9% growth in gross domestic product in 2022, specialists predict an economic contraction in the country by 2023, while German Chancellor Olaf Scholz remains optimistic and convinced that his country will not go into recession in 2023. You can now watch teleSUR English in 33 different African countries through StarSat, dial 461, and enjoy our Latin American alternative broadcast. We have more news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back from the South. In Aqaba, Jordan, the 5-party meeting which brought together delegations from Jordan, Egypt, the United States, Palestine, and Israel ended with the commitment to achieving a just and lasting peace in the Palestinian territories. The agreement includes a commitment by Israel to stop discussing the establishment of new settlements for 4 months and not to legalize settlements for 6 months. It also stressed the importance of preserving the historical status quo in the holy places in Jerusalem in word and deed without change, and highlighted the Hashemite custodianship special role of Jordan. The meeting was attended by senior Jordanian, Egyptian, Israeli, Palestinian, and U.S. officials who all spoke in favor of these agreements. This is the first meeting of its kind to be held in several years. Simultaneously, groups of university students demonstrated in the city of Gaza in support of the Palestinians of the West Bank and in rejection of the meeting in Aqaba between Israel and the Palestinian Authority. The mobilized students denounced that the meeting does not represent the Palestinian nation and does not protect its rights, but its aim is to end the struggle against the occupation forces and the Palestinian national unity. They also denounced that the meeting was held at a time when Israel continues to commit crimes against Palestinians and to expand in the occupied lands. The banks of Lebanon announced they will suspend the sector's strike and will resume work on Monday. The decision was prompted by a request from acting Prime Minister Najib Mikati to secure salaries and allow time for political efforts to address the nation's economic crisis. The strikes in the banking sector began after the judiciary initiated investigations into the country's financial elites. According to experts, the banks are mainly responsible for the economic situation in Lebanon due to the restrictions imposed on the national currency and foreign exchange. The so-called parallel market currently offers dollars at an exchange rate of £80,000 for every dollar, affecting the people's purchasing power and worsening the economic and social difficulties of the Lebanese people. In Nigeria, the Electoral Commission said citizens voted in some parts of the country on Sunday following glitches that prevented them from doing so on Saturday, adding that results of the national election will begin to be announced as of 6 p.m. local time on Sunday. Counting is already underway in the West African oil-exporting countries' presidential and parliamentary elections, with the final tally expected to be ready within 5 days. However, Commission Chairman Mahmoud Yakubu told a news conference in the capital Abuja that results from some of Nigeria's 36 states will be announced Sunday afternoon. The race to succeed President Muhammadu Buhari was expected to be the closest in Nigeria's history, with candidates from two parties that have alternated in power since the end of army rule in 1999, facing an unusually strong challenge from a minor party candidate popular with young voters. Hundreds of people took to the streets of the Tunisian capital on Saturday to denounce President Kais Saied, accusing him of racist comments and hate speech against sub-Saharan migrants. Earlier this week, Saied claimed that hordes of sub-Saharan migrants were causing crime and posing a demographic threat, sparking outrage and demonstrations demanding that the president apologize to sub-Saharan migrants. Tunisia is an African country that has been a key departure point for African migrants trying to reach Europe, what the United Nations says is the world's deadliest migratory route. More than 21,000 sub-Saharan Africans live in Tunisia, including those with student visas and other types of legal residence. In Cameroon on Saturday, at least 19 people were wounded after a series of explosions occurred during a marathon race. According to local media, the event took place in the city of Buea, in the west of the country, when the race of the Esperanza of the Mount of Cameroon was taking place, in which 529 athletes were participating. According to sources, the armed group called the Government Council of Ambazonia claimed responsibility for the explosions, alleging that they were directed against Cameroon's elite forces who were guarding the athletes. The United States Geological Survey reported a magnitude 6.2 earthquake in New Britain province in Papua New Guinea on Sunday. The U.S. agency said the earthquake was registered at 8 a.m. local time and its epicenter was located 29 kilometers from the city of Kandrian, a coastal town located in the southeast of the island of New Britain. The agency reported that the earthquake's hypocenter was located at a depth of 38 kilometers from the Earth's surface. Authorities have not reported any casualties or material damage so far. We have come to the end of this news brief, and you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.